Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This episode is once again brought to you by Galactic Comics and Collectibles. You can visit them over at galacticcomicsandcollectibles.com, or if you're in the Bangor, Maine area, you can visit them at 547 Hammond Street in Bangor, Maine, as well as follow them on Facebook and Instagram. But this episode features Joey Esposito and Sean Von Gorman talking about their book, The Pedestrian. Joey is a comic book writer known for his work on DC's Batman Urban Legends, as well as Aquaman Lost Kingdom, as well as many other comics, including the co-created book Pawn Shop with co-guest Sean Von Gorman. He also is coming up. Joey is actually writing the new Sesame Street book, or the first issue of the Sesame Street book, coming out on August 28th. That's coming soon. Sean Von Gorman is known for creating Toe Tag Riot, as well as Secret Adventures of Houdini, as well as Pawn Shop and The Pedestrian with Joey Esposito. So check this episode out, talking about The Pedestrian. Before you do, visit us on capesandtights.com, as well as follow, share, all that stuff over on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Threads, as well as rate, review, subscribe over on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and all your major podcasting platforms. You can also check out our YouTube channel, but all of that's over at capesandtights.com, so check that out. But this is Joey and Sean talking about The Pedestrian, coming out August 7th to your local comic book shop. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. You got Joey and Sean. How are you guys? Look at that.
Oh, fantastic.
You know what I love about that is that you have actually a professional photo where there's so many people in the comic book industry who just have like a picture from like 1997.
Yeah.
To use for promotional stuff. Like both of you have actual photos of yourselves on your website and stuff like that are not like you standing next to another person at a convention.
Right.
Joe,
With a lanyard on and like
Yes.
arms around. Yeah. Well, I hate it's so uncomfortable to like stand and smile and get your picture taken. And luckily the one that I've been using is just one that my wife happened to take on a normal day, and I didn't have to like think about it, get in my head about it. So it really worked out.
that's because you're using the wrong people, Joey.
Yes.
That's also probably
You
true.
get a professional person, they spend like half hour getting to know you, then they loosen you up a little bit, and then then they run through. When I had mine done, I got mine as a co like graduation present for my wife. So we got a couple of shots together, and then we each got our own headshots, and we let her go first. I had a couple of outfit choices that I brought, and it took her a little while to warm up, but I was just ready to go. It's like, let's do this.
But you can turn it on though. That's like your gift.
I do have an ability to turn myself on.
Okay.
That's a God-given talent right there. Turn yourself on right there.
Yeah, and then she went through, and then like towards the end of the shots we wanted to get, she said, okay, so maybe we can just go through like all like the standard poses, like let's go through all of them. Let's do all the poses. And then this one was an accidental one because they sent me like 200 pictures afterwards, and I sent like the wrong number for it, so I got this one for free. This one is the smolder.
Yes.
I like it. It's
I
real.
also
It's
want
real
to know
blue
how
steel.
many people have cutouts of themselves in their house right now.
Me and everyone at Bad Idea, and that's about it. Because they had a booth a couple years back where they had like an anti-booth. They just had like an enclosure and just standees of a couple of their writers. And I ran into, I think this was Baltimore, and ran into Dinesh at that show. And I was like, wow, looks like we have similar Bad Idea fountains here.
Yeah, it's like it's one of those things that like when someone goes away for a long time, like someone who works overseas or something like that, like they cut out these things for their kids, so they have like a pillow with their face on it. Yeah, Sean's got that at his house, just hanging out.
Absolutely. No one misses me ever because I'm always there.
My wife and I just were rewatching Superstore. Have you guys seen Superstore?
Oh,
I haven't.
absolutely.
Oh, it's phenomenal. But they did an episode where they had a tornado hit and they're reworking the store, and they run out of time. So they just print out these huge pictures of what the aisle is supposed to look like and put it in front of the aisle so people won't know that it's not actually set up. And the lady just runs right into it. It's hilarious.
Looney Tunes.
Yeah,
Yes,
Joe,
exactly.
this is definitely a watch for you, Joey.
Yes.
Definitely
Yeah.
worth
Okay.
checking out, 100%.
Sweet.
Like everything that ever happened at a retail store like stupidly or funny. Someone's like that's not really that really didn't happen. That really did happen is in this show. Like people like there's like in between shots they just shoot like this guy like sitting on a toilet going to the bathroom in the middle of the store. Like it's actually like yeah, it's pretty funny. It's
and
worth a watch.
and they also really leaned into like lockdown
Mhm.
sales
Mhm.
Mhm.
in a way like most scripted shows sort of like ignored COVID or to pretend it didn't happen. They were full into it, focusing on the emotional toll of working in retail during COVID. And Joey,
That's cool.
knowing as much of a fan of feels as you are, it's definitely
Mhm.
something to check out for sure.
I do love a sitcom emotional gut punch every once in a while.
It's also my wife was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that season. That's fairly new." Like she in her mind, this show is from like 10 years ago, and it's not
Yeah,
actually that old of a show. And to have that, timestamp on it, having the pandemic is actually kind of unique. That they did
Yeah.
that well in was it Mythic Quest? They did that pretty well
yeah.
too with the
Mhm.
whole like working remotely and having like some of the actors like, zoom in during the show,
Right.
to make it look like
I
they're working from home.
I do kind of miss COVID TV, how like shows were just like getting back on somehow through like Zoom call technology, and it made television feel more personal. I've been watching some old clips of like Conan O'Brien, like when he was doing that. And I was like, oh yeah, we were still it I don't know, it made it more unpredictable because they were trying and there was a lot more creativity happening during the time. So I was like, yeah, okay, I like this.
Yeah.
They're doing this for new things. This is what I do like all the time. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, look at
Mhm.
this. We can record this from your house." Like, yeah, this is my house. I've been doing this. You guys are learning how to do this. I know it's a multi-million dollar TV show. It's a little
I was
different, but
born
like,
in it.
you can call us podcasters and ask us how to do it. No,
You were raised in the dog. I was born in it. Ah, brain.
That's pretty good.
I missed the news though, because you could tell like who's making way more money, and then the then,
yes.
then the lower borders just have like weird triangle attic apartments that like they didn't really clean up that well.
Like
Uh,
blink twice if you need help. Like, please, like you look like you're in someone's closet. Like, are you okay?
Or, like you see
Yeah,
their hot plate.
yeah. But
oh
yeah,
my God.
the the world has definitely changed, but it's definitely like this makes it fun. I think what I learned about zooming and things like that has made it so that we can do things where like people are in multiple locations, which is awesome. We did a podcast that was on 4 different countries. We had
Wow.
4 other people on there that it just happened to be that the creators were in Thailand and in the UK and the United States, which was really cool. Something that would normally be able to do. Like we're not flying everybody in to do a podcast.
Right.
Most comic book people don't fly anywhere to do a podcast. They always are going to be on. None of us make enough money to do
Yeah,
it to go fly
So when you
somebody at a
fly me in,
podcast.
that's
Yes,
true.
exactly.
Yeah.
I don't get out of
But
bed for less than 2,000.
I,
so I mean, you are comic creators, and you have the Pedestrian coming out here. But let's just start like let's go back a little bit. Let's find out a little bit about how you guys got into comics in the first place, like both either reading and collecting and writing or illustrating. I know, Joe, you want to start with just like how you got into comics in the first place?
sure. I don't remember a time in my life when comics wasn't a part of it. My parents grew up collecting and reading comic books. And so basically, since I was very little, superheroes were always around, and that's kind of where my comic journey started. Certainly, reading Superman comics when I was uh, a boy, just a boy. The death of Superman happened, and that was just sort of like the got its hooks in me, and it's been I haven't looked back ever since. And of course, as you grow up, you kind of discover creators that you love, you discover artists that you love, and you follow them from their superhero books to their creator-owned books, and just sort of going on that journey and realizing the true potential of the medium. At a certain point, I just realized that that is what I wanted to do, and we've been trying to make it happen ever since. And here we are.
Here we are right now. Yep. That's how that story ended here, by the way, everybody. Just that's
Yeah,
it was all a culmination to this episode of the podcast right here.
that's true. Yep.
This is Joey's official retirement.
Yes,
I
this
made
has
it
been
and
fun.
I'm done.
Done. But I mean, as Sean, what's your kind of journey to this?
I have always been into comics. I've always been into drawing. I've always had lots of interests that were all sort of encouraged growing up. I probably had trouble picking one thing because I was always trying to do lots of different things. And then, sort of in my mid 20s, I kind of focused on art and just started putting together my own books. This was when print on demand services were sort of coming out, and seeing what their offerings were of like what other creators were putting out, and seeing that going, I could do better than that. And so figuring out how to make a comic, made a comic, it was done. So I figured I would make another one. Started working on one that would eventually become Secret Adventures of Houdini. It was sort of a action adventure series based on the life of the real Harry Houdini. And we then kind of started figuring out how to get books in stores. And the first shop we went into, we had copies of the book, and their first question was, "Are you on Diamond?" And we're like, "No, what's that?" And so they explained, "Well, it's not really a comic unless you're on Diamond." It's like, okay, well, we're gonna figure out how to make this happen. And then we left. And then someone came in randomly to the same shop and just ordered our book, and the store had never heard of it. And then that shop emailed us like a couple weeks later, like, "Hey, do you have any copies of your book?" And we said, "Yeah, absolutely." So we had like 3 copies left to our name. Through a random happenstance, we became friendly with the then head of Disney Pictures, who had a chance opportunity where he found out I was an artist. Like, "Oh, you're an artist?" We had become very friendly, and I said, "Yes, I'm an artist, and we have a book that's coming out. I'd love to show you." And so we gave him a copy, and he loved it. And he said these words that doesn't happen. Uh, well, I don't really do the publishing too much, but we just bought Marvel. I can make some calls for you. So sure enough, we get a phone call from Axel Alonso's assistant at Marvel. He sends us off to sit with Axel at Marvel. And the first thing Axel says is, "Thank you so much for sending me a comic book because I never get to read comics anymore," which blew our little minds. Because you think, "Oh, you work at Marvel Comics, you must get to read comics all the time." Not the case. When you are working at that level, you see the pieces of the comics eventually come together, then you send them out and don't really get to sit down and process and enjoy them because you're already off to the next one. So as this is happening, he had pages of like editorial notes for us that we took and we incorporated, and we're making another copy of the book as stores are starting to order the book. So we had 3, they ordered 5. So I had to take one back from my mom and my grandma. And like, we'll get these back to you, I swear. And the book sold out in a day, and they were getting phone calls for days about this book. So then they said, "Hey, let's get some more. We don't have any yet. Here's why. But maybe when the new stock comes in, we can do an event at the shop." And they said, "Great. What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know. Maybe we can like lock me outside of the shop or something until we sell all the books." And they go, "Great, let's do that." And then I go, "Oh, cool." And then I'm like, "Oh, fuck. Now I have to do that." And this was in February, New York City, Forbidden Planet, Broadway, 12th Street. It rained all fucking day. And I'm locked, and I'm chained to a light pole outside of Forbidden Planet. And I was out there for 8 hours, lots of magical happenings throughout the day. Like the cops came, they tried to shut it down. A cop a cop said that they were responding to a 911 call about a man chained to a pole being stabbed repeatedly, and then asked me if I was stabbed. I check. No, officer, I'm fine. And this went on for 8 hours until I was finally out. But this event led to that book being picked up, and that's how I started having comics published.
I will say, Sean, you're probably one of the most unique stories to saying how your books got published. But that's, there's some unique ones out there, but that's probably pretty unique out there, isn't it?
I think a lot of it was we were kind of looking at the scene. Me and my writing partner at the time came onto the scene. We started going to shows, started going to shops, and we're looking around. And from what we could observe, is that just a lot of people kind of doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a table. Everyone's talking about their book. No one knows who we are. Who's going to give a fuck about what we're doing? and on top of like all of these random things that are happening to, we're realizing that the energy that's happening here doesn't really happen for a lot of people. So we want to sort of match that chaotic energy in our own way. So then after that, I started going to comic shops and conventions with a straitjacket, and um, I would do straitjacket escapes at shows to like get people over to the booth. And Reed Pop hated this. They really hated us so much, especially Javits, the security at Javits, because we would just shut down traffic for 2 minutes while we would do this. I would be rolling on the floor in a straitjacket. My buddy would be handing out cards for the book, and we would sell some books. And my favorite would be when we wouldn't sell any book except for one guy would come over and be like, "Hey, listen, I don't really read comics, but I gotta give it to you. I gotta get your book."
The
So
first time I met Sean, he was in a straitjacket. First time I met him in person, I should say. So
IRL, as they say.
yeah.
In real life. Yeah, exactly. That's just it's fun too, because I mean you're also like you're not there's too many people who take things seriously too, and I feel like that's also part of it is the fact that like you get to create comics. Like that's a fun thing. It's a lot of people want to do, and you're not taking it too seriously. You're trying to do something different, trying to do something unique. And that's just kind of cool. And I just can't imagine if I got to a comic book convention and someone was in a straitjacket. I don't know what I would think. First of all, I'd be like, what is this person cosplaying as? Like, are you cosplaying? You just walk around in a straitjacket, no one would question it. You're just cosplaying.
Cosplaying is Yorick Brown.
I cosplay as myself every day.
Yeah, exactly.
But also I think you touched on something that
Yeah.
I really admire about Sean, and I think a reason that we work so well together is that we take the work itself really seriously, but kind of the
Yes.
bullshit around it, you know, like we're trying to sell the pedestrian while the world is burning, and like we can't take it too seriously. We can't take
Yeah.
ourselves too seriously because this is, as much as it's an expression of our own thoughts and feelings and art and whatever, ultimately it's for people to read and enjoy.
Mhm.
And that's something fun that should be celebrated, even if the work itself is like serious, so to speak.
Yes. Oh
Um,
yeah, you have to keep it. You have to make. There's enough people out there who don't take writing and illustrating the actual book seriously, and it shows. But taking
mhm,
and actually creating the actual item seriously is
right.
important. But then the stuff that goes around it, and some of it you can control, and some of it you can't control, and that's the big thing. I think there's
Exactly.
too many people that get in their own minds and try to stress themselves out by things you can't control. At some point August 7th comes and if people buy the book, they buy the book. You can't go there and put them in a straitjacket until they buy the book. That would be frowned upon, I'm pretty sure. The cops
We
would come to
could,
that.
we could, but there would be
I disagree.
consequences.
Of
But you're
course you
right.
would.
Like
There
we
is a
have
way of
to,
doing it that'd be fine.
we do the best that we can with the tools that we have and the platforms that we have built for ourselves, which, are just like a little tiny raised
Mhm.
platform, but you work with what you've got and hopefully you put this thing out to add a new rung to the
Mhm.
platform for the
Mhm.
next thing. Um,
And, and so we've got kind of a history of where you two both came from. Where did I know you guys worked on Pawn Shop together, but like,
hmm.
how did that pawn shop relation? Sometimes I talk to people who are creators together. We talk about like obviously, say the Pedestrian was your first book together, but not Pawn Shop was the first book you guys worked on together. How did that relationship come together and make that book before this one came?
Pawn Shop started as all great modern relationships do, which is on Twitter. I had this idea for Pawn Shop, which is a slice of life story interconnected through the central hub of a New York pawn shop. And there's each chapter follows a different character, sort of a day in the life. And I just put out a call on Twitter to find an artist to collaborate with on this project. And Sean, far and away, like as soon as I saw his art, it's like this works. And then later, once I saw him in a straitjacket, I was like, this guy he's got he's got balls. I need to work with someone like this.
I
Um,
was waiting for you to say that he said he put himself in a straitjacket until you say yes that he can work with you on this book.
yeah, I mean, I think like
I
there's
turned blue, tears everywhere.
the showmanship really sold me, but
Yes.
no, just Sean's style was a perfect fit for the book, and yeah, and we just sort of hit it off from there.
It, the partnerships I've always seen the partnerships that people get along and understand each other and see like the illustrator and the writer know where the other one's coming from. It shows on the page if they have a really good relationship. And I feel like that's what I saw in Pedestrian, like the
Thank you.
writing and the illustrations kind of work so well together. But before we get too far into the Pedestrian, Joey, you have an elevator pitch what you tell people what the Pedestrian is? I know it's kind of hard to explain to some people, but like what's the what is elevator pitch for the Pedestrian?
The elevator pitch would be it's a story about a street level hero who never breaks the law to fight crime. And it's quirky and it's fun, but underneath there's a war brewing about the secret ancient history of street signs. So it's a little bit Twin Peaks, it's a little bit Madman, it's a little bit Power Rangers. It's everything that we love about media and comics in particular, just kind of shoved into one project. And I think it's as close as we've come to like really just transmuting our blood onto the comic book page. A little
Is this
longer.
some
That's a long elevator ride,
Yes, no,
but you know,
is this something you've been working on internally for a long time and it's just now coming to fruition?
yeah, we this was a pandemic
Okay.
project that we
Hmm.
started on. That we started as kind of like a webtoons series because it was COVID and who knows what the future of being in public is. And so we decided to kind of work in a digital comic. But then as we got going, we decided this was pretty good. And maybe we should show this around. You know, we didn't show it to anyone for the first year that we worked on it. And then by the time we did, the response was really positive. And something I'm super proud of with this project in particular, you know, Sean and I have worked on other pitches before after Pawn Shop, and nothing really took off. But with this, we were really confident in it. We had lots of conversations. We took it to every publisher you can imagine that existed at the time. And we did get some offers that weren't great. And we knew what we had. And we were like, why would we do this deal when they're not really offering anything that we couldn't do ourselves? So we may as well just either wait for the right opportunity or just continue doing what we've been doing and do it on our own. And so I feel like we really took ourselves seriously and believed in the work, and I think it paid off.
I would say it paid off. I got
Thank you.
the email from Melissa at Don't Hide PR, and I originally was like, "What the hell is this? What the hell is this book?" Like that was my
Yeah,
initial reaction was like, "What is going on right now?" Like I feel like the Pedestrian the illustrations, the character design makes you just want to know. And I think that's one thing that will draw people in on New Comic Book Day when it's sitting on the shelf is the I've got to see what this book is about. And hopefully the LCSs are actually saying, yeah, you've got to pick this book up. But I'm just saying, like, when you look at the cover, you're gonna be like, what is this all about? It kind of because it kind of
hmm
reminds me of remember that guy in like Seattle that was fighting crime like the superhero that was like real life, like the guy that was just like going out all
right,
night. Like honestly,
right.
when I saw that picture, I was just like, oh, it kind of looks like this guy who's just like a good citizen going out there and trying to fight crime as a superhero. Obviously, in the Pedestrian, it's a lot more going on than just that, but like on the surface, it kind of gives that feel.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think that's totally right.
Yeah. There are real life, costumed heroes who put on
Mhm.
spandex and do things for the community, ranging from people who, do lightsaber fights for charity or people who like adopt personas that go out. There's a great documentary, I forget the name of, about a group in Florida that kind of goes around Florida, doing good for the community. And I think that's a lot of I think a lot of that seeps into the pedestrian. It's always been um, an easy sell. After when things started up again, we started making like short ash cans of like the first like 6 pages and then like a splash page where I would go to shows all over the country and would just have like, a little standee of the character on the table or my banner behind me and just having on the table and people would just come over and being like, "What is this?" And I had a woman at New York Comic Con a couple years ago with a cane walks over and says, "Excuse me, is he jaywalking?" And I'm like, "No, he's not. He never breaks the law. This is the pedestrian. He follows all the rules and it still finds a way to help people. And she goes, "Oh, I really like that because I jaywalked once and I got hit by a car,
Oh
and so that's
God.
why I have this cane. I would like a copy of this, please." So this is without a doubt the most strongly received piece of work we've ever done. We've sent this to every publisher that looks at things, and a lot of a lot of publishers didn't know what this was either. They're like, we love this, this is amazing, but we don't know how to position this.
Mhm.
And we kept trying, we kept going to the other publishers, and finally, when we got to Magma, we were kind of left with the question of, we love this, we're gonna consider this and get back to you. I think just the question is how we sell this, which
Mhm.
we knew how we sell it because we've been selling this. We probably, over the past couple of years of just short runs of this ash can, I've either sold or given away close to 300 to 400 copies of this ash can. And the one I've sold for a 6-page ash can for $10, there's a market here. So people
Mhm.
either picked up a copy of this or gave me their email address for our mailing list. So the community's there. We just need to cast as wide of a net as we can to just get as many eyeballs on this as possible. And the retailers that we've been in contact with have been fantastic. Really strong responses going, you know, reporting in on the reactions from their customers because we've sent a little of these standees to the other shops. People coming in and going, "What is pedestrian and why can I stop thinking about it?" And just putting it on their pull list. So we're very confident. We're getting early words. Final word cutoff was last week,
Yeah.
and the early word is the numbers are very strong. They're at levels of Magma's other books. For you know, Joe and I are relatively unknown creators to be at a level of a book that one of their known creators has. I think really says something about what this project is going to be.
It's unique. It's interesting. It's but that's I think there is something to be said there. In the world of comics we live in now. Is there's so much to read that I feel
Mhm.
like, and a lot of it, I would say like 50% of it is the same thing with different suits on,
Sure.
and so like having this ability to have a story that makes you go, what the hell is this? Made
Mhm.
That's what drew me in a little bit. When Paul Eaton at Galactic Comics said, "Hey, I got this email from Joey Esposito. You should check this out." And then, like, honestly, the day later, I think is when I got the email from Melissa that said, "Hey, you should check this out." Check it. It was the original
Coming at you
push
from
to
all
say
angles.
yes. It was that original. Well, it's funny how you say that. I just got 6 or 7 emails about the same Kickstarter campaign because the creator I backed on this Kickstarter had backed a bunch of their Kickstarter, and they posted the update on each one of their Kickstarter. You know what I mean? Like they do the, hey, I've got another
Yeah,
project going on. And I got 6 or 7 emails from the same creator saying I've got a new Kickstarter. And I'm like, I don't know if I like that or I hate that right
it's
now.
the
But
hustle,
no,
man.
but
Well, we're talking about it.
yeah, exactly. It was kind of nice. So I got the original email just saying, "Hey, check this out from Magma Comics, the Pedestrian," and I was like, "Oh, I got to go back to that email that Paul, my buddy over at Galactic Comics, sent me," and he said, you should check this book out. Big thing to us is that Joey's from Maine, so that to me is like, okay, that's few and far between on these
Oh.
people. We're known for Stephen King, and that's about it right now. No, and so we have this love for people that are from or live in our state. And so, oh, I want to read this thing. And I got it. And I was like, I literally emailed them and said, I don't know what to say. Like my original reaction was like, you need to read it and we need to have a conversation about this right now. And he's like, okay, fine. And he's emailed, he went on vacation. He emailed me back. He's like, I read it. We need to talk. And we actually honestly haven't got a chance to talk yet. It was kind of funny. It was like his, ships in the wind
Yeah, well,
kind
that's
of
great.
thing. Yeah.
I'm so glad to
Uh,
hear that.
it's just so fun. I will say that the story's amazing. I think the writing's beautiful, but I also think that the suit design is amazing. We just touched a little bit on the suit design, the
Sure.
character design itself. But my biggest love of this comic is you can tell that he's speed walking. It's just like you
Mhm.
can like the I don't know how you did that, Sean, but like it like moves fast but doesn't. It's just like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like I don't know I've ever thought of someone speed walking in a picture, and this totally does it.
Yeah, I think that was the very first piece of this. Because I had sort of come up with this character design and this idea for this character who was sort of like if you had the Flash, but he didn't run, he could just like walk very quickly. And I thought that was immensely funny. And came up with this suit based on the little blinking man and the don't walk sign, and thinking, oh, what if maybe street signs are some lost knowledge, perhaps? And this idea was, probably made the basis of a couple strips. I had maybe a couple of bits, but not much more than that. And that's when I tapped Joey after working with him on Pawn Shop and a few other projects we've tried to get off the ground over the years. Because Joey is phenomenal at writing rich emotional characters. And we thought it'd be really interesting to play with the mechanics that we did in Pawn Shop, where we had all these different little stories in this town that interconnected with each other. And we thought it'd be really interesting to have the pedestrian be the thing that ties these stories all together, and then eventually build to see that this is all, there's connections here. And the pedestrian, going through, he's not fighting monsters, he's helping people parallel park or helping you find your wallet. In some instances, he's doing some more extreme traditional comic heroics. But really, this is a man who's seemingly building a community in a place where there is not a community. As Joey mentioned, we worked on this during lockdown, so a lot of 2020 absolutely seeped into this, where we're talking about things like touching on things like social justice, isolation, how corporations can break apart communities, being divided by misinformation. And we thought, instead of, we're not here to preach to anyone, but we think that there is a way we can kind of bring people together in a way that, we're not seeing much of anymore. Because these days, depending on who you're voting for, you say a couple wrong words and that person is no longer your friend forever. And it's a very combative atmosphere where you have to be careful about what you say, and how you feel about certain things, as to not either trigger or offend another person. And that's unfortunate. There have been times in our lifetime where, we've been able to bridge the gap and work together on things, because I honestly think that during lockdown we had an opportunity as a people where everyone on the planet for one moment in time was affected by the same thing. There was a real opportunity to empathize with one another and really come together and kind of have maybe even the Star Trek moment that leads us to wearing silver suits and flying around in space. Because if we could get over, our differences, our states, our gods, and work together as in a humanist person to person atmosphere, we would be having this conversation in space.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you went to Star Trek, and my mind went, yeah, that was our Ozymandias psychic squid moment, and we blew it, which is like much more cynical, but I like your version better.
Well, I mean, that was a manufactured tragedy where Ozymandias wasn't wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I echo everything that Sean said. Like this, I think we are aiming for a lot of nuance in the story. Good people making bad choices, bad people doing positive things like that. Because that's how life is, regardless of how black and white things are painted so often. It's simply untrue that is how the world works, or that how people work. So.
It's yeah, and this not seeking, I read the first issue, so it's kind of hard sometimes to, and I only like that too because I talked to another creator recently and they were like, oh, we could send you the rest of the issues. I'm like, honestly, it's nice to talk to you after only reading the first issue, because it kind of puts you just slightly above the person going to buy it at their LCS on release date. It's like, I guess I have a little bit more information, but I don't know the whole story. And but also like the pedestrian shows up out of nowhere. It does things without looking for awards to say, hey, look at you, you did this. But it also is the most realistic of a superhero in real life. Like if the pedestrian could exist in real life, in the sense that cities aren't getting as of right now, as of the first issue, cities aren't getting demolished and they're saving these like
Yet.
world
Right.
ending things. And that first issue kind of gives that glimpse that like, oh, this is just a regular person doing nice things, wearing a suit, and you don't know who it is, and you're like, what the hell was what? Just... I feel like you tell that story to someone. You'd go home and someone was like, hey, someone stopped a car from hitting me, and helped me walk across the street, and so on and so forth. And then someone was like, how much did you smoke before you left for work today? Like, what is going on right now?
Right. Well,
Yeah,
that's the vibe we wanted to go for too.
and
Is
you didn't even mention the guy was in a costume, because then
Yes,
you mentioned
exactly.
that part. It's like, why didn't you start with that aspect of it?
but we like that Sean likes to bring up Ghostbusters in that, that's a world that's very believable, very familiar to our own, except for this one crazy thing that's going on and like this few number of people who are aware of it. Um, so that's definitely an inspiration that we had with this is keeping the world believable, having the characters who surround the pedestrian have real lives and just like normal problem paying rent or bailing out of school or whatever it might be. And they're all sort of connected by this idea that their community doesn't really exist. Their town is on a downslide. It's a once nice little small town that's just kind of people are abandoning, stores are closing, corporations are ruining it. And I think that's all like real life relatable stuff, even though there's this wacko and spandex walking around very well, but it's still just like kind of an oddity.
Yes. Well, I would love the pedestrian, and we talked, being from Maine, I have this the past couple of weeks have been crazy in the world in general, as we know, what recording this the day we're recording this with what
Mm.
recent events happened over the weekend. But
What
the
a week.
yes, but it's a in the Bangor area here in Maine, we had a restaurant close abruptly. We had a grocery store close abruptly. We had an announcement of another place. A fellow brewery is. I work for a brewery in the day. For those who don't know, those who listen to the podcast all the time know that.
Oh no,
But
wait.
those,
Sorry to derail you. What brewery?
Orono Brewing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Big,
and so I'm
big
a
fan.
graphic designer by trade, and so I am the creative director there. So I worked there for 7 years, but like a fellow brewery and our friends at Bissell announced they were closing
Mm.
their location in a rural town,
Oh, really?
in their Milo location. Three
Bummer.
Rivers is closing at the end of the summer, and a friend of mine's restaurant in downtown Bangor, he was actually in my wedding. His restaurant closed. Tozer's Market down the street, a grocery store
Mm.
just closed. They actually announced multiple ones that are closing. And it's just like it resonates, I think, more now
Yeah.
reading this book. And obviously things have closed since the pandemic. Like we've just seen a rash of different places closing. But like I don't know, recently it was weird when reading this again. Like I mentioned, glancing through it last night, kind of just reminded me, like, oh my gosh, this is my backyard. I kind of want the pedestrian to show up right now. Like I said, I don't know where it goes with this issue. Like we got to read the future issues to actually see where it goes. But like as of the first issue, I kind of want the pedestrian to show up in the Bangor area.
I
I
think
love
there's
that.
yeah, I think Joey bringing up Ghostbusters is a great point, because you know there will be these moments where the Ghostbusters were at a glance probably not the people we would expect to save the world. you know um Peter Venkman in general is a very selfish individual. I think my favorite moment in any media is where they're sort of like right after they lose their jobs at the university, and they're drinking on the street in front of the university, and they're like, what are we gonna do? And Venkman has this wild look in his eyes, like, I don't know. And he's taking that slug out of the bottle. Like, that's the energy I try to capture in all of my projects of like, I don't know, but it's gonna be spectacular. We're gonna pull something out of our asses that's gonna be wild. And I'm sorry to hear about those closures, because we're talking about community, and these are
Yep.
places where people commune. We get our food at the grocery store. We congregate at
Yeah.
restaurants. We drink the same beer from our
Yeah.
local brewery.
Yeah.
What does that say about the community when these types of businesses are not being supported in the way that they have to? We keep talking about the pandemic, but we're seeing that. I think deep down, and the sucky thing is that I think we all realize that being at home alone, having things sent to you from your phone, is very appealing. And I think as a whole, we still haven't gotten out of that as much. Sure, maybe we go to the movies once in a while, but we all got set up um, to be at home watching movies with our our loved ones, and leaving home is scary
Yeah.
for several more reasons than it was before. It never feels completely safe these days because we're watching the news, we're seeing ridiculous things happening, and there are people who are hurting and who are not getting the help they need. And as this isn't in the case for everyone, but I think in general it's become very hard to empathize with
Mm.
everyone. We probably as a country have lost our ability to empathize with our neighbors for several reasons. Um, and we need to find a way to, you know, understand and forgive and move forward and work together again. And that's, I don't think this is the roadmap to that, but I think the pedestrian is someone who is a blank slate. You can pin your hopes and fears on this person. This person is going out into the world and is doing his best to try to make the world a little better, not in huge waves of smacking asteroids away from the planet, but small, quiet moments of like, hey, that really helped me out that day. I really appreciate that. And is there some cosmic relevance to this character? Sure, we'll get into that as well. But if you take Superman, you strip away all the powers, what do you have left? You just have someone who you know is going to do the right thing
Mm.
whenever possible.
Mm-hmm.
And you can rely on that.
It's a cool because you think about it, the big bombastic fights you see in big two comics or even in some other independent superhero style comics is like it makes it seem like there isn't the small lower level things going on. It means like everything else in the world in a Marvel comic is perfect except for the alien invasion that's coming. Like it just
Right.
seems like that's because it's always what the focus is on. And actually, most of the time, I should say that is. I just read Lisa Jewell's new book, Breaking the Dark, which is the Jessica Jones crime novel, which was
Okay.
fantastic because
Cool.
it literally was Jessica Jones. She talks about Madam Web at one point. She talks to Luke Cage at one point. She mentions or meets with Danny Rand at one point. But like other than that, it's mostly just her solving a crime as an investigator. And to me, I'm like, that's amazing because I love the Marvel universe and I love hearing
Yeah.
these people's names and these conversations happening. But she's just solving a crime. She's not stopping Thanos from taking over the world or something like that.
Right.
It's like the small street level things. And sometimes I think there's that, and then there's the mix in between. And I think that
Yeah.
maybe that's where Pedestrian is where it is at. It's like not just who stole my wallet, but like there's a little bit more hiding behind it again that I think we'll all find out in future issues. But like
For
I
sure.
think there's a place for that where I don't think that some of the other comic book publishers are doing right now.
And I love superheroes. I love superhero comics, and I love world-ending crises and all that stuff. But also, I think when you're only concerned with world-ending stakes and physical stakes and action stakes, that's not always high emotional stakes, or at least when it's happening all the time, the emotional stakes don't feel as high. Um, and I don't know, I'm much more invested in a character who's worried about how she's going to make rent on time
Mm.
than I am about, um, any superhero struggling with losing his powers or whatever it might be. And that I'm not like shitting on superhero comics
No,
because I love that stuff, but I love the
you're
idea of exploring a supporting cast of a traditional superhero
yeah,
book with like their day to day.
yes. You're also protecting yourself because you do write for other people, so you have to make sure you have it.
I do, but
I still
I
like
would
DC
if
and Marvel. Don't worry,
I
people.
would
No, I'm
listen.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I promise I would tell you if I
I know.
thought something was dumb. But it's just I think it is something that isn't explored as often
Yes.
as I would like it to be, and I understand why. But
I, I can relate to the people in Pedestrian, whereas that's a big thing, and I think that is a huge thing nowadays. I think that's one of the things why Miles Morales got so big was people can start to relate to him more maybe than Peter Parker and so on, and there's this space for people. Why we need some queer comics out there, why we need these comics out there because we need to be able to relate to people who find themselves and see themselves in a book, and
right,
I can't I love reading Marvel and DC comics, but I Marvel more than DC, but that's neither here nor there. But I like reading those big stories, but I also don't see myself in those comics. Like I've never read a
Mhm.
Marvel comic and been like, that looks like me, or that is me,
Mhm.
because I'm not fighting off alien invasions and big things that are world ending. But I could see myself in an apartment in the Pedestrian. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
could see myself with this happening. I would love to beat the Pedestrian. I want to go speed walking with him. That's what I want to do.
It's great cardio.
Yes, exactly.
He'll have
I
like a big
wanted
Rocky
to.
moment where the whole community is following him down the street.
Exactly.
Write that
I
down,
do
Joey.
love that
That's a
Sean said
good
that the
good
reason
idea.
why Joey you're writing these books is because you like to write rich emotional characters, and that's the main reason why you're writing Sesame Street, right?
Yes, 100%. Grover is very emotional. He's
I was like,
he'll let you know exactly how he feels. So I feel like there's a lot of crossover there.
it was kind
I,
of funny. I was trying to explain to someone. I was like, Joey, oh, yeah, Batman Urban Legends. Da, da, da. He's writing the new Sesame Street book too. And someone goes, wait, there's a new Sesame Street book coming? I'm like, yeah, I was surprised too, but I'm excited for it. So I cannot wait for it to come out.
it's gonna be cool.
It's gonna be fun.
Just like all you gotta do is look at Cookie Monster's like crazy eyeballs, and you're
Yeah,
like, okay, that
there
makes
you go.
sense.
So
Exactly.
Grover's always been my favorite character, especially, we're talking about superheroes, where Grover also has a superhero persona, where
Mhm.
this is a superhero who doubts himself regularly. So he's never completely sure of himself, but again, he's still going to do the right thing as Super
Yep.
Grover. He's not going to get it right the first couple of tries, but eventually he's not going to give up. And he's going to overcome his insecurities and do the right thing. And I would very much suspect that if anyone is interested in reading The Pedestrian, they should also pick up Grover Lends a Hand, because I feel like it's going to be a very similar vibe.
Thank you, Sean. I
Similar
appreciate
but
that.
different. No, and but it's exciting. I think it's exciting. Two things. I think this is exciting for all of you guys. Are like almost you guys have been doing comics for a little while now, but like this is the beginning, in my opinion. I think there's a huge future for both of you.
Thanks,
I'm super
man.
excited about it because I think that the artwork's phenomenal in this book. I think the writing's phenomenal in this book. But you touched on the magma comics of it all, and obviously you pitched the book to a bunch of people and so on and so forth. But some people don't know who Magma is, and that's because they are up and coming, and I think that the relationship and what you both I think have publicly said about your relationship and why you like working with Magma. Do you want to touch on that a
Mm.
little bit right now, like what it's been like to get this book out? I mean, the book hasn't even hit the shelves yet, but like it seems like it's been an exciting experience so far.
Absolutely. Magma is a company that originally began as an imprint of Heavy Metal magazine that went independent a couple of years ago. It's a new company, but everyone behind the scenes is an old industry pro from like IDW all over the industry who know what they're doing and have a very clear plan of how they want to offer their comics to the industry. And they're not chasing IP. They're not trying to make movies and TV shows. I mean, sure, that'd be great, but they're trying to make really good comics. And they had approached us back in last year at New York Comic Con. Uh, Bobby Conroe, back when he was at IDW, saw the pedestrian pitch when we were pitching to IDW a couple of years back, and he had come found me at my booth and said, "Hey, we're doing this new thing with Mega Comics. If you have any pitches, we'd love to see them." And we said, "Well, we still have the pedestrian," and he was like, "Oh, I really like that. Please send it over." And usually you send a pitch to a publisher. You either hear from them 6 months to a year down the road or never again, because they either stopped existing or they pissed off too many people and they have to go away for a little while and then come back under a different name. That's another conversation.
That was a perfect explanation of it, though. Like I really do like that.
But Bobby was beyond transparent about what the process was. Like a couple of months in, he checked in and was like, "Hey, we're still figuring out our first slate. We're looking for this for our second slate. We're still considering." A couple months later, like, "Hey, we're coming really close." And eventually, when they gave us the green light, they said this was something that we couldn't stop thinking about. We probably looked at maybe 1,000 different books, and this is something that we couldn't forget, that we kept coming back to. And that speaks to the strength of what this was, and us knowing and betting on ourselves and knowing what we have. And you touched on sort of a return for us, and this is very much a return in a very big way, because this was us deciding to maybe reinvent ourselves in a way of like Joey's has been doing lots of great stuff for DC and other companies over the years. I've been doing some cool stuff with like IDW and like Star Trek stuff that I never thought would happen. But we decided that we were going to make the best comic we could possibly make. And we weren't going to take no for an answer. We weren't going to wait for permission to make this book. We knew what we had. We started making it ourselves. We had maybe 10 shorts of like 10 5 to 6 page things because we figured we're going to be busy along the road. Let's do something that we know we can do. So we were inspired by like old Marvel comics of like a 4 chapter Marvel comic where it's like really just broken up into shorts like chapter 1, chapter 2. So we kind of worked off that model and then had a significant body of work. When we finally started working on this, we had maybe 2.5 issues of content in the can that we had to shave off a little bit because we were writing it as like a 6 page thing. We got 4 issues, and we have the ability to, if this does well, we could potentially do an ongoing. And if we can get to do what we want to do with this, it's going to be the weirdest, wildest payoff that we've seen in a comic in a generation. This is going to be some like crazy Vertigo type shit. This is something that Grant Morrison would write on a bar napkin to pay a bar tab type stuff. Of like, oh, well, here you go. Here's a quick thing. There you go.
It's such a cool way to hear. The biggest thing I think I love when I have these conversations with creators like yourselves is you're passionate about it. And I think that there are creators that I've talked to, and I'm obviously not going to call out anybody that are like pitching the book. Like they're saying, okay, we want you to buy our book. You know, we'll say what we need to say to you, so you buy my book. But then there's few creators like you two who have both feel like every time you talk, I've listened to you guys on other things too. You know, Blake's Buzz, a buddy of ours over there. I listened to that,
cool.
and you guys did a
Thank
great
you.
job on that. And each time you talk about the book, or you tweet about the book, or you put it out there on Instagram, it's always like not just buy my book, but it's more along the lines of you're passionate about this project and it means a lot to you. And I think that in an industry of comics means a lot because I think there's, like I said, there's so much to read. And I think that when you can put a face to a name in a sense that the names that are on the top of the book mean so much to the book, I think it also helps sell. I think you'll get sales just people going, I really like these dudes. I want to read a comic book by these people. And
Yes,
I think
man.
that is huge, I think, in this, because I think that when you wear your heart on your sleeve, when you wear your heart on your comic, I think that it shows. I think both of you two, and not to mention Josh Jensen and Sean Lee's work as colorist and letterers of this book, not to mention those two people as well, because obviously there's a team effort in this. But yeah, I can see it. I wholly can see it.
Thank you so much for saying that and seeing that. I think that is exactly kind of where we're coming from. We like to say there's no plan B. Like this is, I mean, we needed to do well, but also like this is all I've ever really wanted to do. So it's not just a job. It's not just here's my new book. Yeah, buy it if you want. You know, this is like really important to me. This is what I've built and constructed my life around. And I don't really know how to do anything that I'm not passionate about. Just something that I've had to learn about myself. Just like where to focus my energies in the proper way. But yeah, I mean, speaking for myself, I love doing this. There's nothing I would rather be doing, and this book is definitely the best thing that I've done. And so I hope that comes across and people check it out.
It's awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, we're not here to sell a book. We're just trying to let people know that their new favorite thing is about to hit shops on August 7th.
It's yeah, hey, it's wonderful, and I think you're reaching out to Paul Eaton at Galactic Comics and saying to the LCS. I think that's huge too. And I know Paul will probably say, and he might have said to you, or will say at some point when you actually get to have a conversation in person, Joey. But like the idea that when a creator reaches out, I think that Paul carries every single one of Tony Fleece's books now, not just because they're obviously amazing books, but like
Yeah.
Tony reaches out on a regular basis to Paul. Tony, living on the West Coast, gets an email every once in a while from Tony being like, "Hey, have you checked out, Feral or whatever's coming out
Yeah.
from me?" And it makes Paul go, okay, now I'm going to carry all these books, and so the same thing when he got that email, events means so much to a local comic book shop, and you were in there. It's not huge,
Yeah,
but
it's
he packs a punch with that one store, and I think that you'll carry your book over unnamed creators because of that alone, and I think
I
that's
think
huge.
it's really important, and I know that not all creators have the time or the
Mhm.
ability or whatever to make those connections, but this is a community, whether we're creators or readers or retailers or publishers, like it's such a small niche thing that we all need to be like in it together on the same page, working for, the rising tide raises all boats thing.
Mhm.
It's just we need to be a part of each other's lives, no matter what part of the industry we're in. And yeah, I can't thank him enough for getting us on the show
Yeah,
and just really helping us promote the book that we're so passionate about.
yeah, it's a fun thing.
Yeah, I mean, we we do a lot of our business on the internet, on social media, and putting, but sending the word out however we can. But comic shops are still the most important space for people to come in and discover a new product because of that relationship and that community. You've been coming to your local comic shop forever. What's new? Hey, it's Wednesday. What do we got today? Well, we got the Pedestrian for you. This is a weird book that you just need to look at. Just have it on your shelf. You're wandering around, you got your books, and like, I got a few extra bucks. What the fuck is this?
It's exactly. I'm
Pick
gonna
it
buy
up. You're
it.
like, I'm still, I don't know. I'm looking at the couple pages. I still don't know. I need to have this because I need to talk to people about this.
I think he also like Paul likes to have me. I'm in the shop quite often, and I think that he likes to have me there too because I do talk to people and I do read a lot more books than he gets a chance to do because I get them sent to me in emails and things like that and
Mm.
so on, and I get to read them weeks in advance. So that allows him to say, to get the ability to like tell people about the upcoming comic and so on and so forth. Because I'll just stand there and I swear every time I'm in there, he sells a 3 or 4 more comics because someone picks it up. Oh,
Sounds
what's
like
this? I'm like,
you're
that's
sounds like you
really
need a
good.
commission.
I'm like, that's really good. You should really pick that up. You should grab that book and so on and so forth. So I'll probably be there on August 7th, just standing there being like, yes, this one right here, and this one. And then he sometimes gets mad at me. He's like, well, why didn't you say that like, during FOC? Because now I don't have enough for all these people. I'm going to reorder it. And like, it's a problem. That's the problem with the comic book industry, though. That's not
It's a
his
challenge
fault
for
or my
sure.
fault. It's the problem with the comic book industry because of the fact that it's hard to do, it's hard to know. It's hard to know last week that you needed X amount of copies
Right.
in order that far in advance and so on and so forth. But it's not. And also, I'm trying to figure out when things are due. I'm emailing publishers, being like, "When's FOC?" They're like, "That was last week." I'm like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
don't remember.
But
Sorry."
I do think it's important to say for Magma specifically, they're making Sean's covers for issues 1 and 2 fully returnable for retailers. So I think that's a great opportunity for them to order bigger than they might on something, and maybe customers will really take to it. And that's not
Mhm.
just the Pedestrian, but all the Magma titles
Yeah.
are like that. And I think that's a great, really keeping the retailers front of mind. And I think that's really important.
It's hugely important. I think that also here, the big thing to me, and it's just one of those things. Hopefully, the book does extremely well in Maine because I do think that there has, if the person behind the counter knows that a Maine person is involved in this book, it sells books. I think
I hope
that's one of the
so.
huge thing about Maine. I think it's one of the things about working in a brewery.
Hmm.
Our brewery, our beer is sold in Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, sometimes in New York. But it's not going to be likely in anytime soon in Vermont because Vermont people feel the same way as Maine do, that they buy
Hmm.
things from Vermont and Maine people buy things from Maine. And so
Yeah,
it's like one of those weird things that like if the creator or someone has a connection to Maine, they're like, I'm on it. I mean, he carried Self-Help, the new book by Owen King, because it's Owen King. Like he
you're
didn't care
right.
about what the story was about. It was like it has the King name on it. It's probably gonna do
Right.
well here in the shop.
It's
Anything
true.
by Joe Hill, anything by Stephen King, we got to put it on the shelf. It's probably gonna do well. So
I
yeah,
love Maine.
but yeah,
The
see,
best.
yeah, and the same thing with Ben Bishop's done a bunch of great things for his store as well because of that, and Joseph Schmalke and a bunch of other people that are from Maine
Hmm.
that are making waves right now. It's pretty cool too to see that. Not that New York's not great, Sean. I mean, we're fine. You live in New York, it's different, but like
We've had a
I
good
got
run.
I visited New York in August of 2 years ago, and I got COVID. So screw New York. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, screw you too, buddy.
Classic.
What I love most about New York is that New York just doesn't care. You could be whoever you are, and you can just
Yeah,
walk around New York, and no one gives a
yeah.
fuck.
Know what you're doing? Yeah, nope,
Like I finally
not
did
at
San
all.
Diego for the first time last year. In San Diego, when you go to San Diego Comic Con, the whole community opens up, and everything within a 2 mile radius is San Diego Comic Con. This is what
Mhm.
we're doing this week as a group, as a community. All the businesses, we're doing something Comic Con related. If you in New York, if you leave the Javits Center in your costume, no one gives a shit.
They
I
just think it's another crazy New York person walking down the street in a costume, though.
like,
So
oh, is it Comic Con? Oh, whatever. I was taking the train up to the show a couple years back, and there was one of those fellas with the like animatronic animal ears that like responds to your brain waves or your sensors. So like you're having a conversation with someone and your ears are like responding in real time of like, yeah, so I really do think that. And there was like an older woman, sees this and is just very curious, like, oh, excuse me, may I ask you, what is you the thing you're doing? And the kid is probably a little on the spectrum. So he's like, oh, I'm actually going to New York Comic Con. I was like, oh, is that anything like Big Bang Theory? And the kid's like, actually, that show does not represent my community at all. And like the lady's just like, hey, I'm just trying to make conversation here, kid. I don't really give a fuck. I
the
was curious
attitude.
about your robot animal ears. You taking this way too personally.
Actually, that's funny. The Big Bang Theory. Paul's at the shop wearing his Flash shirt, and someone came in and or says, "Hey, oh, that's the Big Bang Theory shirt." And like, oh my god,
Yeah, get out, get
what
out.
they thought would help the industry of comics kind of hurt the industry of comics,
Yeah, it
honestly.
was very much sort of. This is an extreme comparison, but I've
Yeah,
heard it compared to like a minstrel show of like, oh, here's your nerd show
yeah,
doing our little dance.
yeah.
This
But
is for
yes,
you. No, this is for people to make fun of you
yes,
on
exactly.
CBS.
On CBS
And then all the
on
spinoff
Friday
of him
night.
as a kid.
Yes, which yeah, I'm not getting into that. Um, but yeah, so August 7th is when the Pedestrian hits the shelves, I believe. Is that correct? I'm so
That
behind
is
on
Absolutely.
correct.
information. Yes, that's
Absolutely.
correct. And here's the deal. FOC is passed. I think this episode actually might drop on August 7th. I think that's what the deal is. So
And
go to
get to
your
your
Great.
stores,
go to your
motherfuckers.
stores, and if you missed out on it, don't. If you go to your shelf and it's not there or whatever, tell the person behind the counter. That's a big thing I always want to remember. We're a very introverted industry. People there are very shy. We don't, we're nerds, we're geeks. We like, don't like to talk to people. And so go to the counter and say, "Hey, do you have the Pedestrian? No, we're sold out. Can you order one for me?" Because they should be able to get it again, hopefully,
Mm.
in a recent reorder or so on. And then you can get the copy. Tell them now, tell them whenever that you want to read the Pedestrian because I highly recommend it, and I think that people are going to love it, which is awesome.
And
I'm excited for it.
if you are picking it up and it's August between August 7th and August 12th, FOC for issue number 2 is still happening. So you have plenty of time to catch up.
And get that second issue in there and so on and so forth. They will be available on the shelves at Galactic Comics and Collectibles. I'll throw that out there because they'll have them up
Yes.
there. And hopefully sometime you'll come back, Joey, to visit at the shop
Absolutely.
and maybe Paul or myself or both
I'm
of
going
us
to
will be
email him
there.
first though to make sure that he's going to be there and then I'll
Yeah,
take the
call ahead,
drive.
Joey.
What's so funny, he says he doesn't ever go on vacation and he goes on vacation the 4th of July. And he asked me, so Garrett's awesome. Garrett's a wonderful employee, so on and so forth. But pull lists, he
Yeah.
gets very overwhelmed. And so like
Yeah.
when he has like 45 people on that small shop on a pull list, and he says, so in pull list, he pulls comics, he gets the comics in on Mondays and Tuesdays, he pulls them, puts them in the box on Tuesdays, usually just to get it ready for Wednesday. And Garrett was just like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, and so on and so forth. And so Paul texted me and was like, "Are you around?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, I'm off that day. I'm on vacation because I have extra time, and I'll swing in. I'll do the pull list for people." And then I saw him on Friday, and Paul goes, "What are you doing Tuesday? It's my wife and I's anniversary." I'm like, "I thought you never went on vacation, dude. Like, what's going on right now? Why do you keep on taking Tuesday off when you do the poll list? You're throwing Garrett under the bus here." So I'll probably be there on Tuesday to do it again. But I'll
It's
just
like
make
when you
sure if
go
he
out.
has plenty of copies on the day that that stream comes out, I'll just put it in everybody's box. They won't know. Don't
Yes,
worry
I
about it.
appreciate that.
It's like when you go to the bar and you wait a really long time to go to the bathroom, and then once you break the seal,
Yeah, it's got
so
to go every time. Yeah,
you
he's going
take
to be on
one
vacation all
vacation.
the
It's like,
time.
oh, I kind of like that. I'm gonna keep doing that.
Oh, then he realizes that he has to pay this guy to be there. He doesn't have to technically pay himself. Like this costs to go onto this thing. But no. But yeah, August 7th at your local comic book shop. And then I know August 28th is, I think that's right around there, and Sesame Street comes out as well, right around there.
That sounds right.
For that as well. I haven't read that yet, so I can't really give it's probably gonna be amazing, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't
if you have kids, you'll love it.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah, I have a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old. Actually, 4 months today.
Perfect.
And so they'll destroy it. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
That's what it's for.
There's no basis in fact on this, but I've heard in this issue it's finally revealed how you get to Sesame Street. So you better go pick it up.
That would be
I heard.
That would be mind-blowing. No. And then so grab Pedestrian from Magma Comics at your local comic book shop. I'm super excited for other people to read it. Benefit of reading it ahead of time is they get to read it ahead of time. The downside is there's like one other person that I know I can talk about the comic with because he owns the comic book shop. But other than that, I can't really talk to people about it. So I cannot wait for August 7th and other people get to read it.
And if this is hitting on or close to August 7th, this will probably be announced by then. But Joey and I will be doing a little bit of a tour that we're working on, definitely on the East Coast. We're still locking down shops, but on the day of release, we will be signing at Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, Maryland. So any Third Eye faithful who listen to the shop, buy Third Eye or Die, get down there, because Third Eye doesn't fuck around with their signings.
No,
Joey's gonna experience this firsthand, that they start with a line 20 people deep because that's how loyal their fan base is. And so we're really looking forward to saying hello to everyone in Maryland.
My local comic book shop is Galactic Comics, but my online local comic book shop is Third Eye Comics. I'll tell you that right now. I always say that to people, and the same thing with Paul at the shop. If someone's like, "Oh, do you have this back issue?" and I'm like, Paul's like, "I can't get it. I can't reorder it." I'm like, "Check out this website." And I go on there and see if there's available on there because I just feel like they do things right at Third Eye. And if I lived in Annapolis, Maryland, I would be going there. So I think it's a great thing. And also, they do a great deal on the signed comics if anybody wants signed comics because they end up getting a bunch signed by you to keep in stock or whatever. And I think it's like instead of $4.99 cover price, it's like $12.99 or something like that, and it's like something.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not nearly what it should be, what the value of it should be to people. People probably selling those things on $30-$40 on the internet.
Anytime I've signed there, they always get an extra stock of signed copies. So if you order from Third Eye Comics for your books, if you happen to order these books through Third Eye, at least for number 1, any stock that gets ordered will be signed for shipping.
Yes, it's awesome. So people should check that out for sure. Third Eye is great. I do love Third Eye. But yeah, August 7th, local comic book shops. You should be picking up the Pedestrian. I really thank you guys for coming on and taking time out of your day to do this. And
thanks for having us.
I was debating on whether or not we were going to use a different software. We've been toying around with software, so I didn't get you the link until early today, like 12:01. I'm sending you the link. I'm like, oh crap, I got to send these to these people to record.
Oh, good. We made
it. We both sat down. I was like, wait a second, where's the link?
Well, I said because I said Melissa, I'm like, I'll send it to you ahead of time because Melissa's excellent at this, at their job. Like they're a wonderful PR person. And
love you, Melissa.
Yes, exactly. And so I usually send it right away, and they put it's in the link, it's in the whatever. And I'm like, I was toying around with other software, and I ended up just saying I can't do anybody else's software. There's lags or there's just all kinds of things. So
sure.
I was like, and I went to send the link. I'm like, I never sent the link. That's stupid of me. But thank you for taking the time out to come on and talk comics and the Pedestrian and so much more right here on the podcast. We'll have to have you guys back at some point in the future.
There are some people who are addicted to listening to podcasts. We're addicted to being on podcasts and talking about ourselves. So anytime.
In the world of comics, you got to talk about your comics for people to buy them. So that's a good thing to do.
That's my greatest struggle.
Yes, exactly.
Have your money ready. One line.
Yes, exactly. I appreciate it so much, Joey and Sean. We'll have you on again in the future for sure.
Thank you so much.